Every night, he waited for her at the same spot. The clock was almost midnight, and the streets were silent, lit only by the yellow streetlights that trembled in the wind. She always appeared at the same moment in that light, pale dress, as if she were floating on the wet asphalt. She smiled, got into the taxi, and disappeared around the bend in the road, leaving only the echo of her presence. At first, he thought she was just an ordinary passenger, someone lost in the big city. But he soon realized there was something impossible to ignore. No one but him could see her. The empty streets, the headlights of other cars passing by without noticing anything. And there she was, always the same, always silent. He felt a shiver run up his spine, but something kept him from refusing to run. It was as if there was an invisible thread connecting them, night after night. And every time he looked in the rear-view mirror, the seat behind him looked empty. Still, he heard her breathing, smelled the soft scent that seemed to come from another time. Something about that woman or that moment stirred his soul, awakened memories he hadn't even known existed, and a question echoed in his mind: who she really was, and why could only he see her? He was a simple man, the kind who gets lost in the crowd, but everyone in the city recognized him for his calm, honest, and silent demeanor. A taxi driver for over 20 years, he knew every street like the back of his hand, every curve as if it had been designed especially for him. He also knew every customer, every story that passed through his back seat, every smile, every hurried glance, every whispered confidence between the city and the car lights. His routine was predictable, almost ritualistic. He woke early, always before dawn, smelling the bitter coffee that gave him energy to face another day. The radio played softly, old songs no one remembered anymore, filling the silence of the small apartment he called home. Then he walked his taxi, an old car, its engine tired, but which seemed to carry the soul of his own stories. Each morning I would start the car, adjust the mirrors, and wait. He waited for the rides that would turn someone's night into a memory, that would take him across the entire city, from one end to the other. In that small town, where everyone knew everyone else, he was a fixture, a calm presence amidst the chaos of hurried lives. People waved as they passed. Some stopped to greet him with that quick smile. Others simply recognized his car on the street and moved on, unaware that this man, so ordinary to everyone's eyes, carried within him something no one could imagine. His life went on like this, routine, predictable, almost monotonous, yet comfortable. There was a quiet security in knowing exactly what the day would bring. Every run, every client, every story heard was a piece in the silent mosaic of his life. And as simple as it seemed, there was beauty in repetition, in the familiar, in the feeling that no matter how much everything changed, certain things would remain constant, like himself. But there was something that broke this routine, something that didn't belong to ordinary life, to the normalcy he had so painstakingly built. A detail that, while confusing, also inexplicably attracted him. A moment that arose every night at the same time in the same spot, and that made his heart race, even after years of experience. And it was in this detail that the taxi driver's entire predictable life began to dissolve. The city he knew so well, the streets he walked with watchful eyes, suddenly seemed to hide secrets no one else could perceive. The woman who appeared night after night at the same spot, with that calm smile, the light dress, the distant gaze. Something about her challenged everything he knew about reality. He couldn't touch her, couldn't call her name, and yet each encounter left a deep mark. It was as if each ride was more than just a taxi ride. Each turn in the road took him not just to a physical destination, but to a place within himself, memories he hadn't even known existed, feelings that seemed dormant for years, and questions that insisted on remaining unanswered. Who was she? Why could he see her and no one else? And so, night after night, he continued to take her, perhaps out of habit, perhaps out of fear of discovering the truth, or perhaps because somehow she was the only connection keeping him alive amidst the monotony of life. Each ride became more intense, each smile of hers more enigmatic, and each bend in the road seemed to hold the promise of something about to be revealed. The taxi driver, with his simple and predictable life, could never have imagined that those repetitive trips, those silent nights, would be the beginning of something that would change his existence forever. That the mystery of this woman who existed for no one but him would be the key to unlocking secrets buried in time, memories long forgotten, and feelings he thought he had lost forever. And it was precisely at this point that the city, the streets, the old car, and the bitter coffee ceased to be mere elements of a routine. They became the canvas on which real life and the inexplicable began to blend, leading the taxi driver and those listening to his story to a question that could only be answered at the next turn, the next night, the next encounter. Who was she really? And why could only he see her? But there was something different, something no one could notice except him. Every night at the same time, as the city sank into the silence of dawn and the cold wind blew through the deserted streets, a young woman appeared in the same spot, always in the same place, always with the same delicate gesture, almost floating above the damp asphalt, as if part of the night, yet at the same time completely detached from the real world. She wore a light dress that danced with the wind, and her distant gaze seemed to pierce his soul, as if filled with stories that could never be told aloud. She always requested the same destination, the road that led to the town cemetery. A lonely road lined with twisted trees and shadows that seemed to lengthen as the car drove on. At first, he didn't suspect anything. She thought she was just another regular passenger, someone with her own secrets, her own mysterious routine, and who happened to pass by the same spot every night. A common encounter without any major significance. But over time, the details began to unsettle him, eroding the certainty that everything was normal. She never said her name. She never carried anything. No object, no bag, no notebook, nothing that might indicate she belonged in that world. And when he glanced in the rearview mirror, always hoping to find at least a reflection, the seat behind him seemed empty. There was no shadow, no light, no human warmth. Only the echo of something that could not be explained. It was impossible to ignore. Each night, each race left his heart racing, his breathing heavier, his fingers gripping the steering wheel tightly, as if he needed to control something he couldn't. A shiver ran down his spine so often that he began to doubt himself, his sanity, the very reality he knew. And yet he continued to take her, night after night. The ancient car creaked on the curves of the road, its tires screeching on the wet asphalt, and there she was, silent, motionless in her seat, invisible, or nearly invisible, to everyone but him. Each trip seemed to repeat the same pattern, but at the same time carried a different weight, a growing tension he couldn't explain. It was as if the woman wasn't just there, but carrying with her a truth he couldn't yet comprehend. And then the subtle signs began. The smell of wilted flowers that suddenly appeared in the car, even when the window was closed. The sound of light footsteps in the back seat when no one was there. The feeling that she was looking at him, even without a visible face, and that she knew all his memories, all his fears, all his doubts. Each night, the taxi driver felt something bigger await him, something that would forever change his simple, predictable life. He began to notice the tiniest details, the fleeting sparkle in her eyes, the way her hair moved without the wind, the shiver that ran through the entire car when she got in. Each ride became an experience of almost unbearable tension, mystery, and fascination, a story that seemed to be written before his eyes, but that no one else could read. And he began to wonder, who was she? Why could only he see her? Why did she appear to him every night on that deserted road to that silent and lonely destination? Each night left questions hanging, answers impossible to reach, but a growing certainty it was no coincidence. That woman wasn't there by chance, and with every bend in the road, the taxi driver felt he was being led to something greater, something that could change not just his night, but his entire life. He knew he had to keep going, even though he was afraid, because there was something about her that held him captive, something that defied reason and logic, something that begged to be discovered. And as the car drove forward, plunged into the darkness of the silent road, he felt he was about to discover not only who she was, but also what that whole mysterious night meant for him, for his own story, and for the sea. Destiny he had never imagined facing, until one rainy night the routine finally broke. Water fell in thick sheets from the car windows, blurring the landscape and transforming the deserted road into a river of shimmering shadows. The taxi's ancient radio murmured slow, almost forgotten songs, while the driver gripped the steering wheel tightly, feeling each raindrop as if it were a beat in his own heart. He took a deep breath, feeling the early morning chill penetrate his wet jacket. During so many nights, so many silent runs, he had never dared question her. The young woman with a distant look and a light dress would come in, sit down, look out the window, and disappear around the bend in the road. But that night, something inside him broke through his fear and hesitation. "Ma'am, I've brought you so many times. Why are you always there?" His voice was low, almost trembling, but filled with a mixture of curiosity, desperation, and hope. She turned slowly to him, and for the first time, a smile appeared on her face. But it wasn't an ordinary smile, and certainly not one of joy. It was a sad, deep smile, laden with memories, almost as if she were saying goodbye to something that had never fully belonged in this world. Her eyes, deep and distant, reflected a story of pain, of lost love, and of something that transcends life and death. The car continued along the silent road, the sound of the wheels crunching in the rain, mingling with the driver's heartbeat, as if he was listening not only to the present, but also to the echoes of a past that was about to emerge. Each drop that fell on the glass seemed to amplify the feeling that he was on the verge of discovering something that would forever change his perception of reality. When the car finally stopped at the cemetery gate, something inexplicable happened. He looked around, holding his breath, and realized the seat behind was empty. The door had never opened, no one had gotten out, and yet she was gone. A complete silence filled the car, broken only by the soft sound of rain hitting the hood. He stood there for a few seconds in disbelief, feeling the strange sense of emptiness that seemed to fill every corner of the taxi. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something glistening beneath the rainwater, resting on the wet seat. A small photograph, wrinkled and dripping wet. Trembling, he picked it up, his fingers slipping across the cold, damp surface. Looking at the photograph, his heart stopped. The image showed him, smiling. In a moment he barely remembered, and beside him the same woman from the taxi. His body stiffened, his breath catching in his throat. Her smile in the photo, now frozen in time, reflected exactly the same mystery he had been chasing for so many nights. It was impossible to comprehend, impossible to rationalize. How did that photograph exist? How did she know so much about him? The air around him felt heavy, charged with unanswered questions, with reality, with memories, and the supernatural. His heart ached, not with fear, but with an intense emotion that blended longing, wonder, and a strange sense of peace. Something inside him seemed to finally align with what had never been explained. In that moment, under the incessant rain and the yellow light of the cemetery streetlight, he realized that the woman who appeared every night wasn't just there to catch a taxi. She was there to lead him to something greater, something he didn't yet fully understand, but that demanded to be felt before it could be explained. It was as if every run, every silent night, every curve in the deserted road had been merely a preparation for this moment. The revelation that some people, some encounters don't exist only in the physical world. They exist to awaken, remember, and heal. The taxi driver clutched the photograph to his chest, feeling the rain run down his face and the fogged-up windshield. The silent city seemed to watch, and the empty road seemed to guard the secret that had finally been revealed to him. But the burning question remained. Who was she, really? And why could only he see her? And as he stood there, alone in the car, the rain slowly subsiding, a certainty blossomed within him, something that would forever change his life, his routine, and his way of seeing the world. He knew the answer wasn't just in the photograph, nor in the road, nor in the woman who disappeared every night. It was in something bigger, in the story he still needed to live, in the memories he still needed to confront, and in the impossible connection that was finally beginning to make sense. His heart raced like never before. Every beat seemed to reverberate inside the car, in the fogged windows, the rain-soaked seats, in the silence that seemed to swallow the world around him. He looked at the photograph in his hands again, trying to understand, trying to rationalize what he saw, but every detail seemed more real than any logical explanation could allow. And then, suddenly, as if the memory had come flooding back with brutal force, he recognized her face. It was her, his fiancée, the woman he had lost in a tragic accident 20 years ago. The same smile, the same deep eyes, the same delicate manner that had made him fall in love at first sight. A whirlwind of emotions washed over him. Surprise, disbelief, pain, longing, and an inexplicable happiness. Every piece of his past that he had carefully stored began to emerge, mingling with the confusion of the present. He remembered every detail of those days, the way she laughed infectiously, The way she held his hand as they crossed busy streets, the plans they'd made together for a life that now seemed cruelly and abruptly ripped away from him. For 2 decades, he'd grown accustomed to living without her. The pain had become a silent routine, a constant but silent shadow he'd learned to carry in silence. It was a grief he'd accepted, but one that had also subtly isolated him from the world, making each lonely night in the taxi just another repetition of a predictable, empty cycle. And then came the realization, slow but devastating. All those nights, all those seemingly strange, silent, and enigmatic runs, she wasn't there just to catch a taxi. She was there to guide him to something he'd avoided for 20 years. Each night she appeared, with her distant gaze and sad smile, was no coincidence. Each curve on the deserted road, each mysterious disappearance before the cemetery gates, was an invitation or perhaps a challenge for him to face what he'd tried to forget. His own pain, his own guilt, his own interrupted story. He realized that somehow she was leading him toward a reunion that wasn't physical, but emotional. A reunion with the truth he'd buried along with the tragedy, that the love they had couldn't be erased by years or silence. That loss didn't mean the end of their connection, and that he still needed to face his own life with courage and honesty. As the rain eased outside, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of fear and hope. He felt that every run, every night of silent waiting, every moment he'd believed he was alone, had been carefully prepared by her or perhaps by fate to guide him here. And this realization brought involuntary tears to his eyes. Tears of relief, recognition, and an emotion he'd thought he'd lost forever. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 20 years crumble from his shoulders, and at the same time a new responsibility formed, to honor everything he had felt, everything he had experienced, and everything that was yet to come. Every memory of his youth, every smile and every touch now blended into the present in an intense, almost tangible way, and he understood that this reunion, however silent and mysterious, was also a gift to heal old wounds, to close painful chapters, and perhaps to finally make room for a new understanding of life, love, and existence itself. And so, in the silence of the deserted road, with the car parked before the cemetery gate, he finally understood she wasn't just a phantom passenger, nor a mystery that defied reality. She was a bridge to face what he had avoided for 20 years, a bridge to rediscover his own pain, and perhaps for the first time since the accident, find the truth about himself. In that moment, he realized everything would change, that nothing would ever be the same again, and that every run, every night, every shadow on the road had led him to this very moment, to finally face the woman he loved and the life he still needed to live. In that silent dawn, he left the taxi running, the engine purring softly, as if sharing with him the weight of memories and the past. The cemetery gate stood before him, silent, almost imperceptible in the dim light of the low clouds that covered the sky. He looked up, and for the first time in years, he wept. He wept not only for the loss he had carried for 2 decades, but also for the belated recognition of all that he had forgotten. The love, the longing, the pain, and the beauty of a life that, even cut short, still pulsed within him. Tears streamed down his face and mingled with the light rain that was beginning to fall, creating small streams that reflected the lights of the distant city. He felt that this moment was bigger than himself, bigger than any routine or nighttime run. It was an instant of revelation, of understanding, of reconnection with everything that had once been and could still be. He finally realized that some passengers aren't flesh and blood. Some don't just get into a taxi to get from one point to another. Some pass through our lives like echoes of memory, like fragments of eternity, reminding us of who we are, who we love, and what we can never forget. The woman who appeared every night, whom he had believed to be nothing more than a caught mystery, was, in fact, a silent beacon, a presence that guided him back to his own humanity, to his forgotten emotions, to the love that never ceased to exist, even after years of pain and silence. In that moment, he understood that certain encounters don't exist to take us to a physical destination, or to simply deliver us to an address or a common story. They exist to lead us back to what truly matters, to what we carry in our hearts, to the memories that shaped who we are, to the feelings we should never have let go. The taxi driver remained there, motionless, allowing the night, the rain, and the silence to envelop every inch of his existence. For the first time, he felt peace. Not a trivial peace, but a profound peace, a kind born of understanding, acceptance, and reconnection with what is eternal within us. He realized that even in absence, silence, and distance, true love never dies. It simply waits patiently until it's time to remind us of its presence. And as the city, deeply feeling each heartbeat as if it were the first, every ride, every passenger, every mysterious night now made sense. It wasn't just a job, a taxi, or unfamiliar streets. It was life that drew his attention through a story that transcended time and space, and that finally taught him to focus on what truly mattered. He knew he would never be the same again, that the memories she brought, this silent reunion with his own pain and love, would transform every night to come. Every run he took, every look he cast at the world. And even if no one else could see her, he would forever carry the certainty that certain encounters, however brief or impossible they may seem, have the power to change everything within us.